We're exhausted, emotionally exhausted. Welcome to L Squared, a podcast with fresh Love Island content. This drama is in no particular order. Sally disappointed. Johnny is disrespectful. Justine still has that power, and we're about to see her voodoo again. Caleb, our king, has returned home to his castle with Queen Justine. Moira is tired of Love Island. Aaron is a free agent. Calvin is still irrelevant in the storyline. Cher thinks Caleb is still open to a relationship. Girl, step back now because the voodoo works fast. Connor recoupled with Gus. Kenzie's crazy jumped out at Jalen again. Jalen clocked it again and moved on to Kirsten. Kirsten set herself up as a fool. Carrington openly made a fool of her. Laurel joined the villa. This was actually one of the best episodes of the season. Episode 19 of Love Island USA Season 2. It was 2 hours long, well-paced. It gave us all of the drama and all of the content we needed. We caught up with all the storylines, and everybody had at least a little something going on. This was a very full episode, which was very much needed because the previous episode, episode 17, was filler riddled. Everybody, the Islanders, the fans, were so nervous for this recoupling. This reunion has been stressing everyone out the entire weekend. When Ariel came in, she presented herself as a support system. We could count on her to come through with another stunning look. Our hostess held the drama on her shoulder pads and swooped it with her cape. Looks for days. She must be taking notes from Queen Justine. The suspense for this reunion was incredibly high. And everything worked out. Jaleb won. Of course they did, because Justine always wins. She always wins. She has that power. Justine, her power. Her power. Her power. The Casa Amor guys, however, lined up. Their outfits were terrible. The imagery, just the collective, looked bad. But overall, in this episode, or even in multiple episodes throughout the seasons, the music selection has been pretty good. They played Say So by Doja Cat in this, so whoever's picking the music definitely has good taste. We're going to talk about this episode in the order the Islanders recoupled. At the end, we will announce our power couples list and diversity percentage. Moira chose to recouple with Aaron. She made everyone laugh when she forgot to give a speech before she chose him, which was pretty nice. The moment was so intense around the fire pit. Everybody just needed that little breath of fresh air. Leave it to Moira to make everybody laugh and smile with her silliness. Connor returned single for Mackenzie, and Moira cried for Connor because he was standing there by himself with Gus. And it was just a sad moment because everyone realized once again what a great guy Connor is, to stay loyal to Mackenzie and just trust in her and their relationship. I didn't realize that Moira and Connor had such a good friendship that she felt she wanted to cry for him, but I also feel that in the moment Moira was also going through a lot of other emotions and had feelings about other things because she seemed sad after she saw Calvin walk down with a new woman. Later in the episode, Moira confesses to Aaron that she can't try with him because she's not finding it. This it being love, a good connection, the one. I really feel like Moira is just kind of getting caught up with comparing her situation to the situations of the other girls in the house. I think she sees Sally and Johnny as a smooth going situation, or at least they have something, they're building on something. And then there's Justine and Caleb who are just starting something new and exciting. Meanwhile, Moira hasn't really built on anything. She's just moving from one person to the next, and it's just exhausting her at this point. I didn't like that she was crying in the dressing room with Sally because Sally was having her own moment, and I will be sympathetic to Moira because it seemed like she didn't know at the time what Sally's situation with Johnny was. I guess Sally had only told Justine. It would have been nice for Sally to have that moment to herself, but I respect Moira for having her feelings, and I'm just going to give her the benefit of the doubt that she didn't know everything Sally was going through. Her conversation with Calvin, where she confessed her confusion, was a bit confusing to me. I didn't realize she still had those feelings for Calvin, or that she chose Aaron to pursue him and Calvin at the same time if Calvin had come back single. I thought the impression with her relationship with Calvin was that they were just friends and they were both looking to move on. So I thought it was really interesting that Moira chose Aaron because she just thought he deserved to be in the villa and she wanted to give him a chance, but more than anything, she just really liked the person he is. Another notable thing Moira did in this episode was she consoled Kenzie about Kenzie's empty love tank and her need for attention. I think sometimes Moira can be a little bit hard to read, and we kind of saw that a little bit during her tumultuous relationship with James when she was being a bit passive aggressive to him, especially when he was saying things to her that she didn't like. Instead of expressing her thoughts, she just kept her mouth closed. So I think in the conversation with Kenzie, she may have been doing that same thing of where when she's thinking something, she doesn't say what she's thinking. She just kind of keeps her mouth closed. So with the whole love tank thing, I'm not sure if I'm reading this right because we don't really have a lot of scenes of Moira, especially lately, but it seemed like Moira may have been thinking you can't like expect someone else to fill up your love tank, but instead she just said we need to get your love tank full, which was a nice thing to say, especially to a friend who's confiding in you. So Aaron, who is popular with the other girls, by the way, during Casa Amor, comforts Moira about her lack of love. When they're in the bed together, he's telling her that she's just trying too hard to find a connection and focusing too much on it, so it just feels like it's not happening for her, which was very nice advice. Moira does need to relax a little bit. She was just feeling very emotional during this episode. And Aaron comforts her again later in the episode, saying he is an open friend if she needs one, and he's willing to listen to her whenever she needs to talk, and that's very kind of him. At this stage in the episode, I was a bit confused about what exactly is upsetting Moira. It's starting to seem like growing pains, especially when she's in the confessional. Um, because she said that she chose Aaron because he deserves to be there. So now it's seeming like Moira is putting Aaron in the friend zone, but Aaron is in a position where he doesn't want to continue things with Moira because it seems like she's closed off, she needs time to herself, and she just isn't really ready to get into anything new. So since Aaron is there, he just wants to make the most of his experience. So go on, Aaron, graft. Calvin arrives with Cher, and he was the first guy to show up with a Casa Amor girl, so it sunk in with everyone at that moment that it's a reality that someone can walk in with a new person. Calvin's face during Mackenzie's speech was hilarious. He was kind of like looking from side to side, very shifty. We know the guys had a conversation about Mackenzie and how they would perceive her if she chose someone besides Connor. They would think she is a hypocrite. So I think Calvin's face during Mackenzie's speech was like just super funny, and we'll get into Mackenzie's speech a little bit later in the episode. But it was very relatable how Calvin reacted, because remember that Calvin is also one of Connor's best guy friends in the villa. Later in the episode, Calvin told Carrington that his speech was savage. Carrington's speech was savage, and we're going to talk about that shortly too. And I'm really glad that one of the guys called Carrington out for that, because something needed to be said. I think Carrington really thought everything he said was okay, but he didn't have to be as brutal about all of the words he said to Kirsten in front of everybody. One thing I do like about Calvin is he's a smooth talker. He's very calm, relaxed, go with the flow, but he's got some spunk, a little bit of personality with him, and I hope we can see more of that in coming episodes. He's very emotionally intelligent, and that really showed in his conversation with Moira when she pulled him for a chat, or maybe he pulled her for a chat, but they were talking, and Moira was saying that she didn't appreciate that Calvin didn't approach her that night to talk to her about their previous relationship, and Calvin took responsibility for that. He said, okay, you're right, I should have done that, but at the same time I was under the assumption that we were both satisfied in our new couples. And then he moved to the confessional and said that he was very confused about what Moira was saying to him, because she was saying the direct opposite in the previous week. So a lot of people seem to be confused by Moira's mindset, including herself. But moving on with Calvin, he continues to do a nasty smell test in the boys' dressing room. That was really gross. I hope he's not wearing like old underwear. So on to Cher. Cher is the girl that Caleb was physically attracted to, but he's over her now, of course, because Justine, she just has that influence over Caleb. Like, Caleb just can't help losing interest in other women. Anyway, Cher comments about Calvin's conversation with Moira, and she says that Moira is playing a game and making the energy weird. Cher has been coming across as very sassy on TV, and I think that's a good thing and a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing for her on-screen character because we don't have more personality traits to put the sassiness in context. And now she's coming across as someone who wants to pursue Caleb, which puts her in the danger zone, not just for Justine's voodoo, but with the audience, because everybody wants Justine and Caleb to be together. So Cher doesn't really seem to be in a good spot right now. I thought she was very like unsympathetic to Moira, unnecessarily so. But her opinion is her own, and Calvin definitely appreciated it, because after that conversation in the confessional, he says that Cher challenges him and he likes that a lot. So it seems like he's feeling her. Kirsten, as we know, decided to stick with Carrington, and she did the thing that we didn't want her to do. She refused to move on. She kept doing it, staying in the same spot until she was standing in front of everybody, humiliated and single because Carrington continued to move on. I hated that for her. It was just really, really embarrassing, and then Carrington's speech just made it so much worse for her. Before Carrington showed up with Laurel, she whispered to Sally, "I love you too." And she felt strong about her decision no matter the outcome. So I respect her for it. She kept her head held high, and I'm glad she found some dignity in her situation. She hated Carrington's speech, and rightfully so. She says it came across as condescending to her. Yeah, I can understand how she felt that way, but I'll definitely say that Carrington did say some unnecessary things to her in his speech in front of everybody. He really could have kept it short and sweet and just let the moment end sooner. And then later in the episode, Carrington and Kirsten were closing the book on their previous relationship, and they were sweating in that Las Vegas sun. Whew, child. I mean, I can't imagine that heat because you could see the sweat forming on their skin. I mean, that conversation was annoying but necessary. It was just another conversation of Carrington, just telling Kirsten that, he appreciated what she did, and he's assuming that because she stayed single, none of the Casa Amor guys connected with her enough, for her to choose them, and he respects that, and he just wants them to be cool. So I thought that conversation was annoying but necessary. I still feel like Kirsten left that conversation irritated because Carrington still doesn't want to be with her, and she's probably still feeling just embarrassed about the whole situation. So that was an annoying but necessary conversation. I'm glad those two are amicable now, and Kirsten is more motivated to seek somebody else. Hopefully she doesn't end up like Moira, just way too tired to even pursue anything because she's worn herself out with the Carrington situation. But our girl deserves love, and I really hope she finds happiness in the villa. So later in the episode, she admits to Kenzie that Laurel is a better fit for Carrington, and that her and Laurel are direct opposites. So whatever it was specifically about Kirsten that wasn't clicking with Carrington, he's found that in Laurel, and Kirsten has made her peace with it. So yay, move on. A part of me wonders if it was Kirsten's confidence that Carrington didn't like, because it seemed like Kirsten adored him and gave him a lot of attention, but she was also someone who wanted reassurance back, and Carrington doesn't seem to be a giving person in that way, someone who wants to reassure another person. He likes to absorb more attention. So maybe Laurel is someone who just endlessly gives reassurance but doesn't need a lot back. Maybe that's the balance. But anyway, Carrington arrived with Laurel, and he had her walk down the steps after him. So he walked down the steps, and it looked like he came back by himself, and then he waves for Laurel to walk down after him. And that was just so cruel. Because, of course, all the girls were looking. And for that couple of seconds, they actually thought Carrington returned single, only to find out he's got a new blonde bombshell on his arm. That was just, what a hit. If the producers told him to do that, they're extra. Like, that was way too much. That was just mean. So, of course, he friend-zoned Kirsten in front of everybody and stood firm on his decision to be with Laurel. But again, the speech, the words he used just came across as really mean. He didn't have to friend-zone Kirsten in front of everybody the way he did. This is what Carrington said.
Shocked, honestly. I care a lot about you, Kirsten, and when we had our talk that we wouldn't continue romantically, I figured you would definitely choose somebody, and I assumed that none of these guys really fit your needs, and you weren't really interested, so I think you made the best decision for you, and I made the best decision for myself, so I can still be your friend, but, I have made a decision to go with Laurel.
And Kirsten, how are you feeling?
Yeah, so really the end that he made a decision to go with Laurel, but he'll still be Kirsten's friend. That's the part that really bites. He didn't have to say all of that because it was obvious with his actions and his choice. So it kind of came across like, hey, just in case you can't see, this is what I did. Like he's kind of rubbing it in. I'm not sure if that was his intention. That's just how it came across. So I'm also getting the impression that Carrington can be a bit selfish, because one thing he was definitely looking for a girl was someone who made him feel good. I think everybody looks for that in a person, but I'm still wondering what Carrington has to offer to someone else, because he seems to like affirmation, he seems to like his ego padded, and he wants other people to make him feel good, but what does he do for the other person? That's the missing piece we're getting from his on-screen character. And Laurel, of course, makes him feel great. That's part of the reason he chose her. And a part of me is also suspicious if he wants to keep Kirsten on the outs, or just keep her wanting him just to make him feel good. I mean, that sounds pretty malicious, but he's already shown that he likes attention. So maybe a girl pining for him is just something that he really enjoys. Um, and also, when Johnny returned, Carrington looked extremely uncomfortable listening to Johnny's lies, especially remembering all of the shenanigans he was up to in Casa Amor with Mercedes. So I'm thinking the guys are going to stay hush hush on this, because that's just how guys are. And Johnny has already voiced that he was going to tell Sully on his own. So I think they're just going to stay out of the drama. But it was just funny to watch, like, Carrington and basically all the guys that kind of shifted in their seats when Johnny arrived and said what he said to Sully. I thought it was really sweet of Carrington that he was the first to comfort Connor. So he does have some sweet layers to him. We've seen a lot of that earlier in the season. But I thought it was really cool that he was the first to comfort Connor and, just check on him after he was denied by Mackenzie. And then Carrington admit to the boys that he still likes Kirsten, but he has to keep reminding himself that they won't work. So I remember him saying that her lifestyle was something that he didn't like, that she's a party girl. And also distance is an issue for them, but I'm thinking he can overcome the distance because Laurel is from Alabama while Carrington lives in Utah. So I guess he's willing to make it work with her because they have more things in common. Laurel gets a lovely breakfast from Carrington, and he looked different in that moment. Like, that was very sweet. So I'm thinking his love language may be acts of service rather than words of affirmation. And he did say they hit it off right away, so I'm guessing the physical attraction is there and their personalities just instantly mesh. I mean, we did say earlier in this podcast that Laurel is career-oriented and she's family-oriented as well, and Carrington seems to be a group guy or someone who enjoys being around a lot of people, possibly his family, based on the pictures he has of himself on his Instagram. So those two seem to be getting off to a really good and strong start, and I thought it was so funny that Sully commented that Carrington has never brought breakfast for Kirsten. Oh my gosh, but I guess that's just another sign that he was never that into her. So maybe that's a good thing that he didn't lead her on. I think it was really nice of Laurel to be sweet about the Kirsten situation and just sensitive to her feelings and saying, I really hope she finds love in here. And it's unfortunate that there was no one there for her. So it sounds like the other Islanders still respect Kirsten, although she had that slightly embarrassing moment. Later in the episode, she talked to Kirsten and, the two of them just made sure things were cool between them, because it can be a bit awkward when you're forced to live in a community with your current boyfriend's ex. So those two seem to be on good terms and they're just going to move forward without making things awkward. Our queen, Justine, had the biggest moment in this episode. She reunited with her king, Caleb, making the castle Jaleb. We're so glad. I'm so glad Justine trusted her own power and went with her heart and stuck with Caleb. We already knew that Caleb would return because Justine's power, her influence, oh my goodness. So that reunion was absolutely beautiful. Caleb said that he was glad to be home. The way he lifted her, the way he kissed her, the way he comforted her, those two are just a match made in heaven. We've never seen anything like this on reality TV. Amazing. When Connor came out, Justine cried for him, and it was a very emotional moment, and she's a gracious queen. And we have to remember that Connor and Justine have a really good friendship. So I think she just really hurt for him in that moment. She looked uncomfortable when Kenzie was talking about Connor later on when they were having a girl talk. And that conversation was a bit uncomfortable because, I mean, Kenzie was confiding in the girls, but she seemed to feel like she was doing a necessary evil at some point because she was saying that they weren't a good match and one of the two of them had to break it off. So evidently it had to be her. So I think Justine, had a good move about her with just sipping her drink on that because, Mackenzie was just, talking, but it seemed like Justine like didn't quite agree with everything Mackenzie was saying. So I didn't really like that Mackenzie said that maybe some men are intimidated by Kirsten's beauty. I mean, that could be true, but I don't think that was the situation with Carrington. And I think Mackenzie came across as a bit self-centered in this episode. So hearing her say that kind of added to that idea I had about her. So Justine tells Sally not to feel stupid and that Johnny made the mistake, which was really good girl talk advice. Like, our queen is so mature and gracious, and she just gives awesome advice all the time. She's the perfect Villa Alpha with her co-Villa Alpha, Caleb. And she's just glad that Caleb chose her after multiple days because we know she was very emotional about the fact that she wasn't everyone's first choice in the beginning, but to be Caleb's first choice just feels so special to her. So I'm just glad I got to witness Justine's voodoo, and I'm glad she trusted her power, and boom, she got the guy. She took the risk. He was into her, so she kept moving. That's how you do things. Justine is an example for women. Of course, Caleb returned for Justine. He made all the girls cry, as Ariel said, and was very happy to be home. Justine is home for him. He lifted Justine. Their hugs look so nice. King and queen back in the castle. Everything is good again. So Caleb did not like Kenzie's decision. We saw that coming from the previous episode when the guys were talking about Kenzie, and he just looked really irritated during the whole thing. He actually cried a little bit for Connor. We didn't see a lot of scenes of the guys bonding with Connor at Casa Amor, but they must have formed like a really good bond when Connor came out of his shell because Caleb hasn't known Connor nearly as long as the other guys, and he's like crying for him. I mean, wow. Wow. He's a gracious king. So later when the boys break out for their chat after the reunion, Caleb notes that he thinks Kenzie is a manipulative liar. I think that's a fair judgment, like based on the emotional roller coaster that she's been on with Connor and just like all the things that Connor has been saying to the guys. It seems like Mackenzie is that person. Later in the episode, as the villa therapist, Caleb takes Johnny as his new client and tells him to give Sally time, which was really good advice. I appreciate that Caleb minds his business, and when people seek counsel, he's there to offer it. And he just told Johnny right, like just let Sally have her moment and go through her emotions and just accept whatever she has to say. Like don't try to force anything, defend everything. You did what you did, you said what you said, now just let her respond. I liked how transparent Caleb was when he told Justine about his former physical attraction to Cher, that thing expired for him. And he really just kept things like honest and on the forefront with her and just let her know, yeah, after multiple days, I still wanted you. That didn't change for me. And the attraction that he had to Cher was physical. He's over that now. Later in the episode, Justine confronts Caleb about what Cher said, that she's still open to getting to know him romantically, and rightly, Caleb feels awkward because he's over that. And he said he would have ghosted Cher in the real world, and I agree with him. That's kind of like a good ghost situation. Once you tell someone you're not interested anymore, but they're still trying to go at it, if you don't really know them very much, then I think it's fair to just say, okay, I'm done with this. We don't need to keep going back and forth because there's hardly any foundation there. Not that I'm advocating for ghosting. You should definitely say goodbye first. I believe Caleb did that with Cher, but she just didn't accept it the first time. Rejection is hard. But of course, it's another thing our king does with grace. Gracious, gracious royal family in the villa. I can't wait for them to get the hideaway. Sally, Justine's best friend, her princess. Co-queens together, the cis-mates we need. So Sally hugs Justine as soon as they saw Caleb, which is so amazing. I'm glad they got to share that moment and that joy together. She confesses that all of the guys were great and the journey had been an emotional roller coaster for her, but it was always Johnny, and she wants to stay loyal to him. That she had no doubt in her mind, and she was just hoping that he did the same. So in this episode, it was just so evident that she is so in love with Johnny. Like, Caleb really called it right when he said that he thinks Sally loves Johnny, because she felt like a fool because she gave no one a shot after learning Johnny broke her trust. And then even when she was confiding in Justine about the situation, she said that she doesn't want to be a fool to believe what Johnny was saying, that the situation he went through in Casa Amor, how he damaged their relationship, made him better for her. And when he confessed that he, kissed Mercedes in bed and outside of challenges and stuff, that she felt like that confession ruined the good moment they had. Like, she didn't want it to, but she was just really hurt about his lack of faith in her and their relationship. So she couldn't even sleep in peace because there was the toxic pillow talk between the two of them. Like, Johnny saying that kiss didn't matter. And it's just like, Johnny, let the girl sleep. Like, it's bad enough she has to be so close to you, being so hurt by you. And Sally was just irritated that Johnny wants a pass for giving into the sexual attention and hurting her so deeply. I mean, she ended up forgiving him and trusts him more after that incident, but I just don't get it. I mean, I understand that she forgave him. That's completely reasonable, but a part of me feels like she should have took more time, or just, made him sit in it just a little bit longer, just a little bit more. Just really like got him straight for what he did and just said, boy, don't ever, like, that is not how you treat me. Like, I really wish she had put him on blast about the whole thing, or somebody had blasted Johnny about the whole thing. But Sally just had to get over her hurt feelings, and it was just all handled very calmly, which isn't good for drama. But the part that confuses me is that she trusts him more, and I just don't understand that, because when Johnny was doing what he did, he was knowingly hurting Sally. So I just feel like if a person can hurt you like that and is conscious of the fact that they're doing it, how can you trust them more? You can't trust them with your heart, with your feelings, because they knew they had it and they still hurt it. So anyway, Sally's being a fool for love, and she's glad he came back anyway. And I honestly think Johnny confessed to her, because if he hadn't said anything, then the guys would have said something to her, and that would have made everything so much worse, because he wouldn't be able to control how the situation, came across to her. So, I mean, personally, I think if Johnny had a choice, he would have kept the whole thing a secret. Like, he would have stayed with the what happens in Casa Amor stays in Casa Amor sort of thing. At this point, Sally just needs a new man. Mercedes should have shown up somehow and just told Sally everything that went down. They should have sent in pictures, something, because, man, she just needs somebody who respects her at this point. When Johnny arrived, single for Sally, and when he was giving his speech, oh my goodness, that bogus speech, he had tears in his eyes and he seemed to choke up a little bit. And I just thought, man, oh man, this guy is such a good liar. Like, these lies actually come from his gut. his gut is lined with fallacy and falsehood. Like, he can actually stomach what he's saying. He probably rehearsed this in his head. He thought, okay, what is everything she wants to hear from me? What is the perfect recoupling speech? I have to give that to her and then crush her later. It was just really hard to watch. It was uncomfortable, and just being a viewer, seeing what we saw, hearing what we heard, and then having to witness Johnny give Sally everything she wants only to take it away from her minutes later. It was just painful. It was just so painful, and it really opened my eyes to how cunning he can be. So Johnny, in his speech, conveys that he has deep feelings for Sally, and he communicates that the distance made his feelings even deeper for her. We know that. That sounds like a load of crap to our ears, and I'm just going to leave it at that, because we can have a whole episode about how Johnny was dishonest. We've already talked about it on this show countless times, so there's no point in going on about it, but it just really makes me feel like he's just playing a game. He's using Sally, and he needs to get out the villa at this point, because he's not there for the right reasons, and it's clear. It's just amazing that he could convince himself of that enough to tell it to somebody else. It's gross. Anyway, it's really like kind of tripping me out how judgmental he is of Mackenzie, because he ruined his own relationship, yet he's passing judgment on Mackenzie and her decisions in her relationship with Connor. Johnny has no position to be judgmental over Mackenzie and her situation. I just feel like he's way too invested in that. Someone like Caleb, yeah, he expresses his disapproval. You know, Carrington does the same, but it actually seems like Johnny is invested in Mackenzie's bad behavior. It's like her behavior actually irritates him. And the question becomes, why? Why is she bothering you so much? When Johnny made his confession to Sally, he watered down his infidelity to a mere drop. He says, I take full responsibility, this, that, and the other. But he gave her the most simplistic form of the wrong things he did, so it would make it as easy for her to forgive him as possible, because he didn't want to feel bad. He didn't want to live in his mistake for a prolonged amount of time. And somehow in his mind, he reasons that doing those things, hurting her like that, fooling around, giving into temptation, feeding into the sexual tension, choosing to cuddle and kiss Mercedes in bed, made him better for Sally. That sounded like outright manipulation in my ears. It made no sense, because he knows the things he said to Sally before he left for Casa Amor. I understand he didn't know Casa Amor was coming, but if Casa Amor didn't change your feelings for Sally, if it didn't make your feelings for her regress, then why did you give into that temptation the way you did? It seemed like you would have wanted to secure it and build upon it instead of damaging it and hurting her the way you did. It makes no sense that what he did made him better for Sally. It didn't. It didn't at all. All he did was what he wanted to do, and he was trying to come up with a reason for her to forgive him. Another thing Johnny said that really irritated me was, I told her she can be upset as long as she wants. He was saying that in reference to Sally. And I'm just thinking, why would you tell somebody that? No one's concerned about making sure they're upset for as long as you want them to be. Of course she's going to be upset as long as she wants. That just came across to me as a very controlling line. Like, at this point, you know, Sally's not really concerned about how Johnny feels. She's trying to deal with her own hurt. And the fact that he tried to make her hurt about him was just even more disgusting to me. He doesn't even have the capability to put a time frame on how long she's upset. So why is he acting like he can? So back to the thing about Mackenzie, I really feel like with Johnny's examples of manipulation and controlling, and we also said that he seems like the jealous type and very territorial at Casa Amor. All four of those things, those qualities are similar qualities that we've identified in Mackenzie. We've also called Johnny a liar, and we've also agreed with that opinion with Mackenzie, that she has told some lies. So those are 5 bad qualities that Johnny and Mackenzie have shown, and they have in common. So it's making me think that Johnny is so irritated with Mackenzie because a spade sees a spade. Game recognizes game. That's why he can't stand her, because all of the negative qualities that he may see in himself that he doesn't like, he sees in her. And instead of taking responsibility for it in his own self, in his own life, he's just angry at it when he sees it in Mackenzie. Now, later in the episode, Johnny comes up with a new angle for his manipulation, for his warped logic. He says Casa Amor was a challenge. Okay, he's competitive. Why didn't he overcome the challenge? Instead, he chose to fail. Instead, he chose to have a good time. He chose the short answer instead of going for the long-term reward, which was Sully's happiness, which was his better relationship with her. And then throughout the episode, he continues to lie that he didn't know Sully would be so hurt. I mean, I can understand foreseeing that someone's feelings are going to be hurt, and then when you see how hurt they are, you just think, oh, I didn't imagine you would be that hurt. But I also think he knew, he knew that it would hurt her feelings, and that's enough not to do what he did. So her being so hurt, I feel like it shouldn't be that mind-blowing to him. Like Sully said, what did you expect? What did you think her reaction would be? Because he knew she cared for him. And Caleb even pointed out to Johnny that he thinks Sully loves him. So for someone on the outside to see that another person cares about you in that way, why would you even carry on hurting them like that? Oh my goodness. It was such an ugly thing to witness. So I don't understand his logic that his mistake made his connection with Sully more real, because like she said earlier in the episode, she didn't have to explore anything physical or engage or entertain any sort of physical tension, sexual tension with anybody to realize that her connection with Johnny was strong. She didn't have to take it that far, and no one did. Johnny was just doing what he wanted to do, and he wanted to pass for it. So I lost respect for him, and I really want Sully to gain some respect back and move on, because at this point, as the people in the UK say, Johnny is a waste man. On to Mackenzie. So Mackenzie recoupled with Jalen. And I thought it was pretty interesting that during her recoupling speech, she didn't take the traditional route of talking up the person she's going to partner with. Instead, she explained why she was doing what she was doing. And she didn't make the moment about Jalen. The moment was all about her and her justifying why she's breaking up with Connor. So it came across to me that her speech was just something to uplift herself and just basically image protection. So it just seemed very self-centered to me. That was the very first time I saw Mackenzie as someone who's self-absorbed or self-centered. It also communicated that she was still torn and convincing herself that Jalen was the right choice. So she wasn't completely sold on him when she chose him, which is a good attitude, because we've said in previous episodes that Mackenzie wasn't the top choice for Jalen either. So it seems like these two may not go far. Especially because in a previous episode, Jalen said that he wants to keep his options open. So I feel that Mackenzie doesn't quite know what she's doing in this moment. But she does have enough sense to realize that Connor isn't the best guy for her. And I think it was very brave of her to realize that she's been a better person outside of her relationship with him. So I think it was a good thing that she decided to move on. I just wish Connor had moved on as well. It would have been less hurtful to see him come back. It would have been less hurtful for him. I didn't like in the conversation with the girls that she was acting like she did Connor a favor by moving on. I'd like to give Connor the respect that he would have broken up with Mackenzie if he felt it was necessary, but instead he decided to trust in their relationship. So I'm thinking there was something there for him to trust in. Like there was enough good for him to stay in it. I refuse to believe that Connor is any type of fool. I'm not really sure if this was true or not, but Mackenzie was also suggesting that guys weren't very cool to Jalen. I don't know if that was true or if she was just feeling self-conscious about her decision. I mean, it may have been true because all of the guys already have a bond with Connor and they didn't like how Mackenzie's decision made Connor look. So they may have been so busy comforting Connor that they didn't really like give Jalen a lot of attention. But that doesn't mean that they weren't cool with him. We know how guys are. They all usually like get along or, manage to make it work between each other. So later in the episode, she confronts Jalen and says she wants to have more one-on-one conversations with him. This sounds reasonable. And it was kind of interesting that she swooped in when he was talking to Kirsten. That actually looked a little bit territorial, but that's a very strong accusation to make against Mackenzie. But I just thought it was interesting that, when she saw him talking to her, she just plopped herself in there. So in the conversation, I understand if Mackenzie feels a little bit neglected by Jalen and that she just wants to spend more time with him. I don't think that was unreasonable by any stretch of the imagination. I thought the post-breakup conversation she had with Connor was a bit dramatic, but I may just be thinking that because Mackenzie got emotional again. But I did appreciate that she didn't want Connor to feel replaced. I thought that was an important thing to say. I mean, I don't think he did feel replaced, but maybe she's felt like that in the past, and she just wanted to make sure that she wasn't pushing that onto someone else. So I actually liked that she said that, and I also like that she complimented Connor and said that she would be lucky to be with a guy like him, and that's absolutely true. Connor is an awesome guy. I'm glad they both agreed that they had something special. It definitely was a unique relationship. But I didn't like that Mackenzie had to end that conversation by saying Connor is a grown man now. I just feel like some of her tones in that conversation came across as patronizing, like she was babying him and that she had just watched her son grow up and go off to college. I mean, Connor was always a grown man. He's always known how to handle himself. And maybe the fact that she's been treating him like that just says about Connor that he needs to speak up for himself more. But I still don't think it's fair for Mackenzie to treat him like that. He's not a pet. We're on to Jalen, who says that Kirsten is more his type in the confessional, and I find that interesting. So a couple of episodes ago, we were wondering who was in Jalen's top 3 because we know Moira was number 1. So I'm thinking Kirsten was number 2. And he also said to Kirsten later in the episode that she was top choice for a lot of the Casa Amor guys. So Kirsten, girl, why weren't you making the right moves? But this also gives us some context and some information about what is motivating Jalen's friendship with Kirsten. It's just because he's very attracted to her. He has like physical attraction to her as well as attraction to her personality. So he also is telling Kirsten in that conversation that he likes his pace with Mackenzie, and it becomes evident that he has his own game because he's also telling Kirsten that he wants to grow his friendship with her and that he's interested in her as well. Honestly, I respect Jalen's game because he did tell Mackenzie before he got into the main villa that he had his options open. So, I mean, they're not that serious yet. They're still in the get to know you phase, and he was straightforward with Mackenzie in saying that he wants to keep getting to know her and he likes the pace they're going at. He doesn't want to get too serious with her too fast. I think it's fair game for Jalen to pursue Kirsten, especially if Kirsten is interested. She needs a man. Well, in the villa, she needs one to stay in the competition and win the money. On principle, no woman needs a man. But yeah, Jalen, go ahead, get that rebound spot. I thought it was interesting that Jalen said to Kirsten that Mackenzie didn't give him, or that he didn't have an instant physical attraction to Mackenzie, but he seems to like other qualities about her personality. And Connor also commented that Mackenzie has a lot of good personality traits. We're just not seeing that as much because, of course, those are positive things. It's not as dramatic as like the bad parts of her personality, but it would be nice if we saw more of the nice Mackenzie that the guys seem to like as well. So when Mackenzie was confronting Jalen about wanting more time with him, I thought it was so funny that Jalen was like, sure, sure, sure. It actually made me wonder if he liked what he was hearing from her. He's proven to be straightforward so far, so I do think he was listening. But I also feel he was confused by Mackenzie's position and her emotions. It was so funny when Mackenzie asked, do you ever feel like you prioritize other people's feelings over your own? And Jalen says, no, I feel great. So I was thinking to myself, okay, that's definitely a Mackenzie issue. But I just think it's really like funny how things are so simple to guys sometimes. Like, oh no, I feel great. Like, I'm not worried about that at all. Like, I feel like guys just by nature just are a lot better at keeping things moving. I think as women, we need to do better with that. But yeah, Jalen's short responses are really, really funny, but they come across as so genuine, and that's what like adds to the comedic effect. But after the conversation he has with Mackenzie about the one-on-one time, he leaves that conversation confused, and I get the sense that he doesn't know how to satisfy her because in his mind, he likes the pace they're going. They're still in the get-to-know-you phase, and he feels like, as he says to Moira, that they don't have to fall in love tomorrow. Like, they're still, like, he seems like he wants to do a slow burn with Mackenzie, but Mackenzie's ready to dive in head and feet first. So I'm thinking he's not the kind of guy who's going to spend a lot of time figuring out how to satisfy Mackenzie. I mean, to his credit, he was patient, and he did think about what she said to him later into the night. He asked Moira about it, like, hey, do you think I'm spending enough time with Mackenzie that we're going at a good pace? Like, he asked somebody about it, and he thought more about it throughout the day. And when he got into bed with her, he brought it up to her again. He tried to communicate with her about it and gain a better understanding of what to do about the state of their relationship. And they kind of just didn't go anywhere with it. So I got the impression that he thinks Mackenzie is making an issue where there isn't an issue. He still feels as though he's doing enough and that he has reassured her in their relationship, and that should be enough for her. He shouldn't have to keep reassuring her when nothing has changed. You're still moving forward. So I do understand Mackenzie asking for more time, but Jalen just doesn't seem to understand the reason. I think he doesn't understand the reason because he doesn't need that from relationships. At the same time, I also think Jalen isn't interested in trying to fill Mackenzie's love tank. I mean, there's no answer for how to fill somebody up. You have to fill yourself up. You need you're responsible for your own happiness. That has to come from inside, not out. So I think Jalen had the right attitude. He approached the issue with Mackenzie well. Like, he tried to talk to her about it. He sought counsel for it. He thought about it, and I just don't think he's going to spend a lot of time figuring it out. He's just going to move on to someone he's more attracted to, and it's just easier for him to get along with someone else, probably. Now we're on to Connor. We've talked about him a lot already through this podcast episode, but we're just going to recap really fast that he returned from Mackenzie with Gus. Oh, that was so cute. He had Gus, and now Gus's parents are divorced. He was definitely hurt, and he felt taken advantage of and slighted by Mackenzie, which is fair because they both put so much effort into that relationship. Mackenzie was taking it so seriously, and I do believe she gave Connor the impression that she was all in with him, and then to come back and she switched. So I understand Connor was hurt, and I admire that he kept his trust in the relationship, and he was so willing and loyal and just wanted to build on what they had and make it better. He had nothing but amazing things to say about Mackenzie, and he was really strong and right to wish her the best in her new relationship with Jalen and just hope that she finds love. He was really like that's the best way you can receive something like that. So later on, when Mackenzie confronts him, he says he's not mad and he just wants her to be happy. I didn't really like that it seemed like Mackenzie was trying to make Connor's hurt about her. Like, he was just going through his own thing. The same thing with Johnny and Sally. Like, when someone is hurting, just let them go through their feelings, and then when they're ready to talk to you later, then you can rehash it. But other than that, Just let them be. So I like that he was still patient when Mackenzie, was doing that to him, making his hurt about her. And I just think he took the whole thing pretty well. And, he's going to heal and, just keep moving on. So I also like that he said he didn't have a good connection with anybody at Casa Amor. So his decision wasn't all about Mackenzie. It was just that he didn't find anybody better. So just like Kirsten, he was just true to himself, and I respect him for it. So go, Connor. Get your shot at love. You're a great guy. Our current diversity percentage is 50% because 7 out of the 14 islanders are people of color. The only swirl couple we have are Carrington and Laurel. At the top of our power couples list, as the alphas, to the end, Jaleb and Justine. Unfortunately, Johnny and Sally are the beta couple now. They're still high on the list because they're the longest standing OG couple, and Sally ended up forgiving Johnny, so they're on and popping. Sally is a fan favorite. This just is what it is. We just have to hope for a new guy to swoop her off her feet. Number 3, we have Carrington and Laurel. Number 4, I'm going to put Calvin and Cher because there seems to be a little bit of a spark going on there. 5, I put Moira and Aaron. They seem to have a nice friendship. 6, I'm going to put Jalen and Mackenzie because it's not really known where they are right now. It seems like they've stopped. It's unclear whether or not they're friends, and Jalen is shopping for somebody else. And Mackenzie, she just seems confused about what she wants. So yeah, we're going to put them at the end. Oh, and Mackenzie isn't really a fan favorite right now. I think Moira has more fans than Mackenzie. So off the list, we have Connor and Kirsten as the singles. Now it's that time in the show where we mention our tweets. At plotsandplans_ says, the fact that Sully was tearing up for Justine. Oh yeah, that was amazing. They're genuinely friends, and I love that sis-mance. At Ungodly Iris says, Caleb looks so happy rushing down those stairs and everyone crying for them in the spin around kiss. I'm so weak, I can't do this. I'm so relieved. Yeah, we had been waiting all weekend to see that, and it did not disappoint. The love between Justine and Caleb is truly genuine and budding. At Loud Hijabi says, my favorite besties, they always support each other through everything, no matter. I love them so much. Yeah, Sally and Justine are the best. They've given us some of the best scenes this season. Better than a bromance. At I Got Spam says, me pulling up to the villa to beat Johnny up, and it's a gif of Trisha Paytas driving her car in a tunnel. Yeah, that's hilarious. I think a lot of people wanted to get at Johnny for what he did to Sally. It was just so disrespectful, and just the way he handled the entire situation just made everything so much worse. Yeah, I just really hope Sally gets some redemption, whether she knows she needs it or not. I just want her to have a better time in the villa, because at this point, Johnny is coming across as unworthy of her. Jalen says, Johnny, I ain't ever cried for a girl like this. When I say it's on site, I mean it. Yeah, that was incredibly hurtful. At MTV Theo Campbell says, y'all peep Kirsten and Connor? Oh, yeah. They were talking behind Johnny in the scene where Johnny was talking to Caleb about what he said to Sally. So yeah, they were, trying to get it on, seeing if there was a spark between those two. I think they make a nice looking couple, but I don't think they're gonna catch on. I think Connor's a little too nice, and Kirsten may be a little too fiery. But they could be a Curtis and Mara situation. At Dizzy Skricky says, Jaleb content, 4 hearts. Yeah, loved it. That was the whole show for me. It was a very well put together episode, just full of content. At Kiera says, Connor really brought back Gus. I'm crying. Yeah, that man, whew, he was committed. He was thinking about Mackenzie the entire time, and she was not loyal. That hurt to say, and Connor deserved more than that. It's Colombe says, unpopular opinion, Mackenzie deserves to be happy too, period. Yeah, I mean, I don't think she did Connor a favor by breaking up with him, but I will say now that the relationship is over, it's a sweet relief because they can move on and be better people with other people. At Cher Bear says, I'll give the producers $50 to show us Jaleb content. Yeah, a full episode of Jaleb would be a dream. Someone else said, the show's villain, a picture of Mackenzie. The actual villain, a picture of Johnny. Oh yeah, I think for the show, like for drama, Love Island definitely milks everything from Mackenzie. But Johnny just isn't getting enough screen time, or he's just kind of getting off easy with the mean things he's done to Sully. At Juicy of Bits says, Jaleb stands. I'm gonna need y'all to make new edits with the footage from today's episode because I cried too much. Yeah, definitely. We're going to be thriving on those edits from now till the end of the season to next year. Like, as long as Love Island USA exists, we're going to be reliving those edits and just comparing every season in the future to this present one. Thank you to everyone who participated in the group chat. It was a lot of fun watching the episode with you all. Keep up with us at Lonely Loquate on Instagram and Twitter. DM us if you'd like to be featured on the show. We love responding to listeners' comments. We'll be back tomorrow night with more fresh Love Island content. Not Cher, going for Justine's man. Y'all, Cher is not a threat to Jaleb at all. Justine has that power, the voodoo. Her man is under the influence of her. Cher is just having a moment. She's having a Trey moment right now where she just didn't get the rejection the first time, but she's going to catch on. Caleb has already said basically that he doesn't care that Cher thinks he wants to get to know her because he's not gonna get to know her. So I just hope the girl doesn't get embarrassed on TV, but that is not a situation we need to worry about. Jaleb is secure. Her power, they can't take it. They just can't take Justine's power. They hate it. But she just gets stronger. It's unfathomable.